In our current state of industrial agriculture, the main stakeholders we discuss are industrial farms, policymakers, consumers, and organic farms. Industrial farms are farms which utilize unsustainable practices such as pesticides and chemical fertilizers, and mass harvesting done by heavy machinery with high emissions. They are the farms which help create new technologies, implemented the farming of commodity crops, and run confined animal feeding operations. Industrial farms are directly related to the second main stakeholder, policymakers in Washington. The policymakers construct laws, acts, and programs for the nation to continue industrial agriculture. The third main stakeholder is consumers. Consumers are no longer blind to the harmful impacts of monoculture farming and the negative residual effects to the environment, water supply, biodiversity, society's health, has monopolized economic value and led to a demand for a sustainable revolution of healthy alternatives. The voices of concerned buyers are enabling the fourth and last of the major stakeholders, organic farms, to compete with industrial farms. For our research, organic farms are defined as those using traditional or polyculture farming without the aid of chemical fertilizers and pesticides. To sustain the immensely growing population, some farms began using technologies from the Green Revolution to help expand food yields, such as miracle seeds that would increase grain yields, greater inputs of fertilizer, water, and pesticides, as well as new crop strains allowing for larger yields. The USDA, in an attempt to protect the health of the public, put regulations in place to keep these large production yields safe for consumption. However, the chemicals were found in ground and surface water runoff and have led to health issues in human populations. The natural resiliency of pests also makes it necessary to re-engineer new chemicals every 5 to 9 years. This keeps the people who work in this industry in business and creates long-term jobs. Policymakers' actions have supported the industrial agriculture industry, and as a result, there is a much higher financial reward in monoculture farming than polyculture farming. Organic farmers' use of crop rotation and symbiotic planting means that their crops can be chemical-free and naturally resilient, but it also means that they must charge a higher price. Most consumers choose to buy non-sustainably grown produce at a lower cost than to pay more for sustainably grown produce. The practice of industrial agriculture impacts the phosphorus cycle by the overuse of fertilizers and chemical pest control. These chemicals contain high amounts of phosphorus, and that phosphorus filters into our water supply through the soil. The phosphorus cycle is vital because phosphorus does not occur naturally in the atmosphere, and it is necessary for DNA and cell membranes to exist. This large amount of phosphorus causes water eutrophication and contamination. The amount of phosphorus is consistently growing in bodies of water all over the world, especially in areas where there are no laws to protect the land. The increased amount of phosphorus creates a lack of oxygen in the water called eutrophication, which leads to dead zones. Dead zones can no longer support marine life due to lack of oxygen. Primary drivers of industrial agriculture are global population growth, advancements in agricultural science, pressures for farms to produce higher yields, and rising overhead costs for farms who choose to remain smaller.
In this portion of our video, I will be discussing the part of the TSR framework that delves into where we are headed in regards to our topic of industrial agriculture. So, industrial agriculture has been a prominent farming method for the past century, and some of the practices that are heavily used in industrial agriculture, such as chemical fertilizers and pesticides, are used to help aid in crop growth and crop production and help increase it drastically. However, these chemical inputs and fertilizers lead to soil erosion, eutrophication from runoff, biodiversity loss, pollution, overexploitation of natural resources, and many other harmful consequences to the natural systems of this earth. So, if we continue on this path and keep using this practice of industrial agriculture to help sustain this planet and its human populations, we're going to cause irreversible damages to the environment for future generations. That's again not only present generations, but mainly the future generations. And eventually we will deplete our natural resources supplied on this earth. However, if we begin to support local farming techniques, farmers who practice organic farming, we can reduce the amount of environmental degradation on this earth and sort of help restore the previous natural balance of where we were before industrial agriculture became a prominent farming technique. In order to do this, though, we need some help from the government. For example, regulations need to be put in place by the government that can ultimately lead to the extermination of all harmful farming techniques and practices. These big industrial agriculture corporations need to be stopped and kept from continuing to harm this planet and its natural ecosystems. Um, the Earth, after these regulations have been put in place, can then begin to restore its natural services and replenish its natural resources so that we can learn how to coexist on this planet instead of stomping on it and using it only for human population sustenance. We can start to sort of morph into that coexisting way of life that is necessary for this earth to continue to keep its natural resources replenished.
Our group believes that a sustainable vision for industrial agriculture will focus on protecting our natural resources, promoting economic opportunity, and ensuring food security in the face of a changing climate. Due to climate change, agriculture will be affected by fluctuations in temperature and weather patterns that can destabilize crop production and the global economy. Our vision will include stakeholders from smallholder farmers to multinational companies. Our vision will reduce the depletion of natural resources by focusing on organic farming that does not use pesticides or chemical fertilizers to increase output. Instead, highlights ecosystem services with genetic and species diversity. Economic opportunity is also a focus of the vision, to guarantee agriculture is beneficial for farmers and communities. The vision will connect farmers to local markets with efficient transportation and infrastructure. Farmers that can earn enough money to support their families can also contribute to the economy by buying goods and services. Ensuring that agriculture is rewarding for farmers can grow local economies and provide opportunities for low-income communities. Food security is also a focus of the vision. In addition to increasing agricultural output, consumers must have access to affordable and nutritious food. Consumers must also have the ability to make educated decisions about nutrition and ways to reduce food waste. Diet-related illnesses are prominent in food insecure communities that do not have access to nutritious food and nutrition education programs. Our vision cannot just include increasing production, but must also include educational efforts and social support to bring food security to every household. As climate change threatens global agriculture, organic and diversified farming systems will grow in popularity due to their resistance to drought, floods, pest infestations, and disease. In our vision, there will be a paradigm shift towards sustainable farming and supporting local, organic, and diversified farming systems.
Okay, now that we've talked about our vision for turning monoculture industrialized farms into polyculture organic farms, I'm going to talk about how we get there. Specifically, our transition strategy consists of 4 phases and will happen over a 25-year period. It will begin with the pre-development phase, and we will use simple technology of Dr. Rudolf Steiner of self-sustaining biodynamic agriculture utilizing non-toxic fertilizers. Within the first 5 years, we would like to take 5% of industrial farms and turn them into polyculture organic farms. This will happen using a community-supported agriculture system. This means that the small communities within these North American areas will come together to invest and bankroll these organic farms, and then they will receive the first crop rotation. These farms will be heavily studied by researchers from private and public scientists to provide evidentiary support of a successful global conversion over the next 20 years. We will then move on to the takeoff phase. We will use a grassroots movement heavily promoted and advertised by celebrities around the world using social media, billboards, TV ads, and magazine ads. This will be funded by private organizations that are heavily invested in the organic movement. Over this decade, you will see organic agriculture increase another 20%, totaling 25%.
By this time, you will see employment rates in these communities rise. You will see a decrease in the lack of food security and a decrease in food deserts. They will then move on to the acceleration phase. Popularity will explode over this short amount of time. In the next 5 years, you will see 25% to 50% conversion of industrial farms to organic farms. Organic prices will significantly decrease, making them amenable to all households and all incomes. They will then begin to implement a 6-month visit from government agencies and their educators to teach the farmers and their farm hands all of the new technology. Lastly, we will move to the stabilization phase. By the end of this 20-year period, operations will be running smoothly. We will begin to gather another 10% of industrial farms, in total 60% organic farms in this 25-year period. You will see a decline in famine, malnourishment, and food security. There will be constant monitoring for governments around the world to ensure organic quality does not decrease or decline over this time. Thank you.